in the moment I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm terrible. Like just saying such terrible things to myself. And I had
Yeah.
just done Clue and I loved it. And I was like, I didn't work hard enough in that show. Like I guess I didn't prove myself enough.
Yeah.
And it just put me in such a bad headspace when I was like thinking about my work. And so I was like, no, no, Anna, like you did feel really proud of what you did in
Mhm.
that show. And that's something that you should feel proud of, and it should just that does this like rejection doesn't take away from the work that you have previously done and that like you yourself felt good about.
Welcome to episode number 15. I'm your host, Benjamin Vomastic, and we are joined today by Anna Yarnal. Anna is a stage and screen actor, and she acted in our upcoming production, Hometown Summer, playing the role of Caitlin. How are we doing today, Anna?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to sit and talk with you. So I'm doing wonderful.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This will be fun. Yeah, so just kicking it off, could you just tell us about what your journey has looked like as an actor so far, both on stage and on screen, and then what your goals look like, both in the short run and the long run?
Yeah, definitely. Um so I really didn't start like acting a lot until I got to Michigan State. I like growing up, I kind of started with dance
Hmm.
and I just loved the performance of it all and I was just having so much fun with it. And then um I feel like theater was always something I wanted to do, but I was always just like nervous about it.
Hmm.
But I started with dance and then during high school, like my first few years I got more into choir and singing and everything.
Hmm.
And I really didn't start doing theater until maybe like my sophomore year of high school.
Oh, wow.
And I just really liked it because it was kind of a combination of dance and singing and performing
Yeah.
and
Yeah, for
I
sure.
just loved it. And then um yeah, and in high school we did like a lot of musicals and stuff. So for a while I was like thinking that musical theater was like the route I wanted to take.
Hmm.
Um and then I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and major in and everything. And I was like, you can major in theater. Like it is a possibility. You can do it. And there just wasn't anything that like really stuck out to me as much as that. And so I kind of went on a whim and applied to Michigan State's program and I really was drawn to the program because it has a lot more screen acting training in it as well. And that's something that
Hmm.
I think I've always wanted to do is film. And
Yeah.
so I ended up coming here and it has been so wonderful. And I've just gotten to be involved in so many things and they've taught me so much. And so now I'm kind of in this whole acting world and it's been so wonderful. And I feel like I've landed on what I like the most in performing. And so yeah, that's kind of where I ended up, a little bit about me. And then some of my goals that I have. Definitely my short-term goals are that I'm currently taking a drama class and
Hmm.
we are learning a lot about like actors' roadblocks and how they kind of manifest in like basically every time we perform, you can kind of see like a little bit of everyone's like roadblock. And so um my short-term goals have been establishing my roadblock and how it manifests in my performances. Um And something about me is that I am really, um, when I'm performing, I sometimes am very just hyper aware of what the audience is perceiving
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
me as Anna and not
Yeah.
as my character. And so, um, I kind of do this thing where I feel like I almost over rehearse and
Hmm.
like I make sure like this is how it's going to sound when I say this line, like this is what I'm going to look like, this is how I'm going to move around the stage and I almost do that too often that like I don't make any new choices that are like in the moment, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so my short-term goal has been to put a lot more trust in my partner and just let the scene like drive me to new things because like so many different things can happen in like when you're doing a scene, and so I
Mhm.
think trying to get out of my head and live in the character's world a little bit more rather than like how me as Anna has like designed this world for the character. So that's definitely a short-term goal, and then I think long term is just to get the ability to tell a meaningful story. And I think acting and theater is such a wonderful way to get audiences to feel things and relate to things. And so I just really would love the opportunity to tell something meaningful and impactful and have the audience take away something from the performance and leave with having laughed or cried or just thought of something new. And so, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love all of those. I think those a very unique answer because I feel like a lot of the times when I ask that sort of question, or when people in general are just asked about these sorts of things, a lot of times their responses are more career driven or accolade driven, and these were very much personal growth. And I think those are very unique answers, very good, and the sort of things that you want to grow in to achieve those career driven goals. So yeah, no, that's really unique and cool that you responded the way you do. And so do you have a preference with stage or screen, or do you kind of want to continue doing both? Or what's
Yeah.
your thoughts with there?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I feel like for a long time I was definitely wanted to pursue film,
Yeah.
and it is still that way. But sometimes when I do staged work, it's just so fulfilling and it's so fun to like just live in the moment with people sitting right there watching.
Mhm.
And so right now I'm kind of torn 50-50, but kind of wherever I end up will be good with me, I feel. So um but yeah, this year I'm kind of taking the time to figure out what path I want to start with. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're actively doing both currently.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think this next question does tie into what your goals are. And I feel like this is a really difficult one in how do you approach playing a role that is vastly different from who you are as a person?
That's a really good question. Um and such perfect timing because just on Thursday I just had to do this scene in the drama class I was talking about. And it was from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams, and
Okay, I'm
it
not
was
familiar
just
with that. It
it
sorry, could
it's
you elaborate on what this production is?
oh,
I thought it
yeah,
was an
definitely.
interesting title.
Um, so the scene basically takes place in Mississippi, and um, it's
Mhm.
basically there's this woman, her name's Maggie, and then her husband is Brick, and she's grown up extremely poor, and then she marries into this family, and she's finally rich, she's finally living this like life that she wants for herself, and then
Mhm.
um basically so uh Brick, her husband, his dad is dying of cancer basically, and
Mm.
all their money comes from Brick's father. And so and the father hasn't written a will yet, so they're trying to figure out where the estate is going to be passed down to.
Mhm.
And we don't have any children, and Brick is an alcoholic, and so it's this really manipulative scene of her like trying to seduce Brick in order to have a child in order to inherit this estate.
Mm. Okay,
And
yeah.
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 So it was crazy. And it was like a
Yeah.
20-minute scene, and I could not relate to this character at all. And it was we honestly have been working on it for about a month now, and it was really, really challenging because this
I can
character is
imagine.
yeah, it was hard because it was so wordy. It was just monologue after monologue,
Mhm.
and Brick. isn't really listening or giving in to anything she's saying. And so it was a constant battle of like, how do I get his attention because he has to listen to this because we are on such a time crunch, like.
Hmm.
And so it was so fun to work on because I really just had to dive into like the scene study and the character work and figure out like why is she saying what she's saying, because there were so many moments where I was like why would she say that, or like just so many questions I had, and then I was like, well,
Hmm.
that's how I would react to it as Anna, but
Hmm.
she is not that. And
Yeah.
so it was just so interesting to find where where she's coming from with this. And I think when playing someone that's so different from yourself, it's it's okay to not like the character, and
Right.
you just you have to find their main objective. And so for this scene especially, I was like, it's time is her, like she's just everything's it's got to go right now or else
Mhm.
it's like she's kind of done for.
Yeah.
And so just like I feel like sometimes I do try to relate like my own personal self to characters,
Hmm.
and it's helpful at times but other times not. And so with this character, I think just keeping that main objective and like letting it manifest throughout the scene. And so I think when playing someone different, you have to really dive into like their mind and figure out why they're saying what they're saying and make that separation from your own personal life. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like, in how you make it work out in the end. Like, for example, do you think about times in your life where you were on a time crunch and you urgently needed to get something done now? And do
Mhm.
you take on that emotion through the lens of the scene? Or, yeah, how do you get it so that you are embodying this character?
Yeah. For this one especially, I was thinking of that, like kind of
Yeah.
when you feel that like anxiousness of like you got to get things done and move in. And so I kind of like played with relating like little things that I could find connections to this
Yeah.
character, and that just like finding where that like anxiety kind of like sat in my body, and then
Hmm.
um just trying to justify it with the story happening, and and I think it worked out in the end. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds just super challenging. I mean, I don't have a ton of experience in acting, but I know in the acting I have done, what I've generally just done is trying to approach the world through the lens of like just trying to think, when have I felt similar emotions? But I mean, it just sounds so difficult to like be in like such foreign territory as well.
Yeah. It's definitely difficult,
But I
but
bet.
oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I I was just gonna say it's definitely difficult, but when you do the work and then perform it, and I think it's just such a fun process to go through, because there's days where I was like, okay, I think I landed on it, and then we do
Hmm.
it again and be like, no, that was not it. That did not feel right at all. So I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
let's go back to the script, and just like collaborating with my partner, and then like when we did it for our presentation, it felt so good and it was just such a
Yeah.
cool like actor moment, and so then
Yeah.
it's so fulfilling once you land on it. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah, and I'm sure that going through experiences like this and succeeding, I'm sure not only from a confidence perspective, but just from a technical acting perspective, I'm sure it's going to pay huge dividends.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm curious, like, just based on something you just said about like, how do you know the performance isn't working? When you said that there were some
Um,
times
I
when
feel
you were
like,
working
oh,
through the
that's a good
scene, and
one.
there were some days when you thought
Um,
that it just wasn't it.
I feel I think I know it's not working when I'm confused as to what I'm saying sometimes. I'm
Okay.
and then I know like, okay, I don't know like where this line is coming from. And I don't
Yeah.
know like why I'm changing my tactic in this moment. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I feel like that's when I know it's like such
Uh,
a it's hard to put into words, I feel, but
I get what you're
there's
saying
definitely
personally.
mm,
I, I mean, essentially, you're just saying that like you don't. It doesn't feel right if. Huh, I guess I do think I understand what you're saying, but now I'm trying to like put into words like what my understanding is, and it's uh shit. It's like you're trying to say that if I'm understanding this correctly, you're trying to say that it doesn't feel right if you can't, from the lens of the character, logically like understand why you're doing what you're doing. Is that correct?
yeah, if there's not like if it's not justified,
Yeah.
then
Okay.
you just know like it's just not it's not working. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I think this segues well into the next question about aspects of acting that the average audience member doesn't realize or maybe doesn't appreciate. I mean, I think what we
Mhm.
just discussed right there, I'm sure that's a thing that the average audience member probably never thought about, but any
Mhm.
other things you could think of?
Yeah, I think I feel like the average audience member might not realize like just the amount of work that goes into performing. Like it's
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes maybe some people think like, oh, they're just memorizing some lines and
Yeah.
putting on a little show, but it's just there's so much work that goes into it because like you are becoming someone else and it could
Hmm.
be someone so different from you and you have to make it believable and like kind of put yourself into this new world that you've never lived in before. And so
Hmm.
I think sometimes the audience members might not realize just how much work goes into it um and I feel too like sometimes like just recently we did a production of Inherit the Wind a couple weeks ago, and like afterwards there was one show that I got home and I like sat down and I just was so like drained, like in my body just felt so
Hmm.
drained. And
Hmm.
I was talking to my roommate and I was like, I just feel so like weird right now. And she was like, oh, well, you're probably just tired. And I was like, no, it's like it's a different feeling. And I don't know, like it's and then you get up and you do it again the next day and the next day and so it's a lot of taxing work
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's so fulfilling and it's so rewarding. But I feel like sometimes maybe the audience doesn't pick up on that. Or also I was thinking about this question too, and I feel like for actors it's hard to feel like the job is complete in a sense because um like with taking acting classes and theater classes, um, it's sometimes difficult because it's not like, okay, I finished the paper, it's submitted, I'm done.
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I ran the scene, but should I do it again? Like I could do it one more time. I don't know. So it never sometimes feels like the work is complete because we're always so go, go, go and trying to find something else. But I feel like some people think it's a lot easier than it actually is.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, acting is definitely something that is way easier said than done. I mean, it
Mhm.
would just challenge anyone who thinks that it might be an easier craft to try and pick a scene from one of your favorite movies and try to act it out and just see how
Mhm.
terrible you do the first time you try it. It's
Definitely.
it's yeah, it's I mean, and again, I don't have that experience, but like I do have experience at least like trying some things out and
Mm-mm.
a little bit of screen time and like just like being humbled like the first time, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, and so on. Like just the amount of hours and whatnot of preparation that I put into doing like a 1 minute scene.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's I mean it's so difficult. It It really is. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head.
Mhm.
And that the second point you brought up, that's something that I just never thought about because I've never acted in something that wasn't one of my productions. So when I'm directing, I'll know the scene is done when it's done, like when I have what I want and whatnot, and maybe we tried some things out, but like I get that idea in my head that okay, like we've got it and we're ready to move on to the next scene. And that was interesting to hear your perspective because it's like, yeah, I guess there is that uncertainty for the
Mhm.
actors, and I guess everyone, all of the crew as well. Like, you don't know when you're actually done with the scene and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was an interesting one for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, so segueing in, you said you have a couple of unique stories from set.
Mhm.
I'd be curious to hear
Yes.
them.
Yeah, I have a few. Basically, last year I was working on a student film here at Michigan State, and
Hmm.
um, we it was only like a 4-minute film, but we filmed
Okay.
one day. We were like, okay, I think we got it.
Hmm.
It looks good. And then a couple days later, we heard that like we had to do a bunch of reshoots and like that the audio was weird and everything. But
Okay. Yeah.
being students and trying to get everyone on the same schedule was really challenging. And so
Oh yeah.
I remember it was like there was only 3 actors in the film, and 2 of them like couldn't make it to the reshoots, and it was like 10:30 on like a Monday night, and the director called me and they were like, "Anna, like we need you to come in. We need you to like do reshoots." And I was like, "Okay, like I can come in, but like how is this gonna work if it's only me?" And they were like, "We'll
Hmm.
we'll find a way. We really need you." And so I was like, "Okay." And so I drive over to this person's apartment, and then it was just so it was such an interesting moment of like collaboration.
Hmm.
And it was ended up being really cool, but um basically the scene was kind of like a breakup fighting scene,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
um my scene partner couldn't make it to the shoot, and he was really, really tall,
Hmm.
and
Okay. Yeah.
so we were trying to do like an over the shoulder shot of him, and
Yeah.
but he wasn't there, and then the we had already filmed all of his audio, so then we were
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, now, like," because the director was like, "I'll step in for him." And we're
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
"But you guys don't have the same voice, like, it's gonna I don't know if that's gonna work well." And so I was like, I can just try to, like, say the lines and, like, react and then say the next one." And so it was just such an interesting moment because the director stepped in, so we had, like, a little bit of his shoulder in the shot, and then
Hmm.
I basically was just, like, doing this breakup scene, but, like, to the microwave for, like, a
Yeah.
long time, and it was just so weird because 'cause I'd be, like, yelling, and then I'd have to, like, pause and, like, try to react, but there wasn't anything, like, no sounds or anything to react
Wow.
to, so
That
it was
sounds extraordinarily challenging.
it was an interesting time for sure, but I think it taught me a lot of, like, working on a film set and just coming in prepared and with ideas and just being
Yeah.
ready to go and respond to the given circumstances, I guess, but it
Yeah,
was
that's
it was an interesting
insane.
time.
That I could not imagine doing that. That that just sounds wild because I think that in the scenes I have done as an actor, I've been able to get by and like we quote unquote got away with it because I was acting alongside experienced actors and they inevitably elevated my performance and I could just bounce off of them. And yeah, I can't imagine the act of actually doing a scene where like they're in the scene but we're reshooting and they're not available. So like I just have to like react to nothing. That
Yeah.
sounds like just an immense challenge.
Yeah, it was something for sure, but it ended up working out in the end, and
Yeah, you're
so that
happy with
was
the results?
yeah, and it ended up working, and it was pretty cool in the end to see how it all came together, but
That's
Yeah.
really cool. Is the
Yeah.
film available anywhere?
Um, I think so. I can send it to you. I think I have a
Yeah,
link to it,
yeah. I
but
would like to include it. I would like to see it first, and I would also like to include it in the show notes if it is available. That'd be really
oh
cool
yeah,
to definitely like
definitely.
see the example of what you were just talking about. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'll definitely send it to you.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome.
and then something that happened on stage, which is a little crazy. I love
Yeah.
when not I don't love when something goes wrong, obviously, but I love when like the actors just kind of all like without even saying anything, just kind of like all work together to like pick up the pieces of it, and
Oh yeah, me too. I love that too.
it's just it's so
it's really
fun.
cool to see. Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Um,
really excited to hear this story.
but last fall we did Clue,
Uh-huh.
and um and Ben Corsi and Joey Culligan were
Mhm.
in it. And it was so funny. There was this one moment and Ben was playing Mr. Green,
Okay.
and he like in the end it's like revealed that Mr. Green is like in on this whole plot and everything,
Mhm.
but he was supposed to have like a gun in his pocket that's like
Mm.
it's supposed to be like whipped out at the end of the show, and it's like this big reveal. But we were like in the middle of the show and the prop like it somehow like slipped out of Ben's
Oh
pocket
no.
and it just landed on the stage, and we all just like looked down, and I was standing right next to it, and I was playing Miss Peacock, and I had this like
Mhm.
big blue like ball gown on, and I just kind of like took a step and like covered it with my dress,
Uh,
and it ended up working. So that was a funny moment. And then I think it was our opening night, and there was this one part in the show where I'm supposed to like drag this character like across the stage, and then
yeah.
I like pass out or something, and because Miss Peacock was just so hysterical. But um I had like just gotten back up from the floor, and my mic pack like slipped out from the back of my dress, and so and it the mic is like taped to the side of my face, and so all of a
Yeah.
sudden I was like slowly like what is like pulling me back. It was so interesting, and we're all supposed to like get in a line and like go to the next like room in the house, and
Yeah.
Joey was standing behind me, and she like noticed that the mic pack was like dragging because I it's one of those shows where you never really leave the stage, and so I was like how am I gonna
Mhm.
like I don't know what I'm gonna do, but it was like I don't know, it's just so perfect. Joey like happened to see it, and she just like scooped it up and like put it right back in my dress, and we
Yeah.
just kept on doing the show, and it was just it was so funny. And so those are some of my funny moments or mistakes that have happened.
Yeah. No, those are cool for sure. That's awesome that they all worked out in the end because yeah, I can
Mhm.
imagine how anxiety inducing those sorts of things are for sure on a
Definitely.
stage play. I mean,
Yeah.
in movies, I mean, something like that happens, you can just call cut and yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I feel like yeah, having that like this is the only take you get. I can imagine how stressful that could have been in the moment, but
Yeah.
how relieving when the solution is found and everything works out in
Mhm.
the end for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. I also like when those sorts of things happen in movies that I'm directing because like for example, most of the time what happens is it's just like okay, like we just reset, no big deal, no problem. We'll just do the next take. But I do often wait to call cut because sometimes you can get some super genuine reactions.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a scene in Hometown Summer where Henry was supposed to have something on him, but he didn't. And like we just did the whole scene. And I think like that's the take we're gonna use because I mean it's hard to describe without like spoiling anything, but like
Yeah.
the reaction he gave and then the actor like the scene partner like actually playing off of him and
Mhm.
like recognizing that cut wasn't called and just going with it
Mhm.
created just such a genuine cool moment
Oh,
that
good.
yeah it's just so fun. I mean I love that kind of stuff and I mean see some of those things in actual movies like it's cool to hear some of the behind the scenes stories about things that weren't supposed to happen and like reactions that were actually genuine and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, But yeah, it's just starting to get a little more personal and a little bit more aside from the technical aspect of acting. Maybe
Hmm.
not as fun of a topic, but I feel like with acting, there's just so much rejection inevitably. I mean, only one person can play each role, and I mean, you might have 10 people who are qualified to play the role, and it's like now you guys got to get down to like the real nitty and gritty and how who fits this the best and why, and just such a grueling process.
Yeah,
How do you handle rejection as an actor, and does it get easier with time?
that's a wonderful question. Rejection, it's it's hard. It's definitely hard, and I feel like with acting, um, it is something that I'm I just love it so much, and I'm so passionate about it
Hmm.
that getting that rejection, it's it's hard because it's like an immediate thing in my head that like I didn't work hard enough. I didn't prove myself enough. And last year it was like we were doing our casting for our spring semester shows and I didn't get cast in anything. And in the moment I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm terrible." Like just saying such terrible things to myself and I had
Yeah.
just done Clue and I loved it and I was like, I didn't work hard enough in that show. Like I guess I didn't prove myself enough.
Yeah.
And it just put me in such a bad headspace when I was like thinking about my work and so I was like, no, no, Anna, like you did feel really proud of what you did in
Hmm.
that show. And that's something that you should feel proud of and it should just that does this like rejection doesn't take away from the work that you have previously done and that like you yourself felt good about.
Hmm.
And I think with rejection through acting, like I feel like it's important to give yourself that time to feel sad about it and to feel bummed
Hmm.
about it. And then I just feel like there's always another opportunity, there's always another door for you to go to and um I don't know, I feel like sometimes I know it sounds cheesy, but sometimes like everything does happen for a reason and um without having gotten that rejection or yeah, and when I got that rejection, I was able to do one of our student productions. It was called Horse Girls. It was the silliest, goofiest show and it was insane and it was just so fun and I
Hmm.
got to do that because I got that rejection and I think
Yeah.
um yeah, I think also rejection it honestly just it motivates me to work a lot harder and to like just like prove myself a lot more and um I think last year having gotten that rejection and having the way that I like handled it initially was not the greatest
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
it led me to find to feel proud of my work even when I wasn't getting that validation from my peers or from my professors, like just
Yeah.
doing like knowing that I did the work and I worked hard and I felt good about my performance and like
Hmm.
telling myself that without having to hear it from others, I think that really helped me and um yeah, I think just when you get a rejection, give yourself a moment to feel bummed about it, but know that there's more opportunities and there's more things for you to do and um I kind of let it motivate me to be better. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you being so open about it and vulnerable. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of people could benefit to hear. And I mean, yeah, I think that that's wonderful that you were able to change your perspective and be nicer to yourself. I mean, I think that that's so
Mhm.
important. I think that life is very difficult. And I mean, it is very hard, I think, for anyone in any industry just living, just be happy with who you are as a person and
Mhm.
having that self love and self compassion. And I'm so happy that you were able to achieve that despite such hardships.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, that's really great to hear because I'm sure that that's something that almost everyone, if not every actor, struggles with. I mean,
Mhm.
it's got to be so difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that it's also really important what you said about that it's okay to be upset, it's okay to be sad. I
Mhm.
don't think anyone should try to hide their emotions, and I think it's just who we are as people, and we feel these things, and I completely agree that it's okay to feel those things, but latching onto that, that's awesome that you were able to move beyond and also use it as a driving force for growing as an actress. And that's really cool. I mean, it sounds like you have a really great head on your shoulders and that you're able to view things from a very productive and mature perspective for sure. That's really cool to hear.
Cute.
So, going off of that, like, what advice would you give to someone who finds themselves really feeling down from facing a ton of rejection, and maybe they feel like, yeah, like they're just not in it at the moment?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the time with acting and auditioning and everything, it's so easy to compare yourself, also to
Hmm.
compare like who you are as a person. And like I think it's important to establish like your personal self and your professional self. And um and when you get that rejection, it's so easy to take it so personally. um but to I think some advice is, though it's so hard, try not to take it personally, because you never know what the people who are casting this thing, what they might be thinking. Like,
Hmm.
it might, I feel like sometimes with theater it's like, especially like at in high school or like in a university like this, sometimes it's like, oh well, that person's older, so they should get the role. Or it
Mm,
just there's always just so many little factors that like are out of our control.
yeah.
And um and I don't, you shouldn't blame yourself for that or anything. And you never know what the person is thinking, and when they're watching you audition. And I think to just try to keep it lighthearted. And I think if with this career there's going to be so much rejection, and I feel like just try your best not to take it so personally, and to remind yourself to feel proud of your work. And if you love it, then you got to keep going and growing from it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. Very beautifully said. That's
Thanks.
something that, yeah, I think would be great for a lot of up and coming actors to hear for sure. And I can just say from the casting perspective, I mean, it just sucks. Like the you have, I don't know, 10 speaking roles in a movie and you have 200 people auditioning. Like that, it's
Mhm.
the odds of getting cast just from a numbers perspective are just low.
Mhm.
It sucks. It really does. But I mean,
Yeah.
just so many phenomenal actors aren't cast, and it's just the reality of the situation. And it's not a personal thing at all. It's
Mhm.
very much just it's just what I mentioned a little while back about you might have like 10 really strong fits for a role, and it's like who is just with their performance just matching the closest to what I envision, and
Mhm.
just some really tough calls have to be made. And it's, yeah, like it's not a question of who is good enough to play this role, it's who is the absolute best fit.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, if it's any solace, I know there are well-known name actors in Hollywood like they don't get cast in everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like I know, for example, Jennifer Lawrence has read for Quentin Tarantino a few times, and like she just hasn't been cast yet. And it's like she's a straight up A-lister. So it's like
Mhm.
if she doesn't get cast in everything, like that just shows it's not a talent thing. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's something that's very important for people to remember, as difficult as it is.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, Wrapping things up on the acting side of things, curious about some of the biggest things you've learned from other actors acting alongside them or just in talking.
Yeah, definitely. I have learned so much from watching other people, and
Mhm.
um I think I when I was thinking about this question earlier, I was like, I'm a very like independent person, and I like to figure a lot of things out like on my own. So when I first started like my freshman year here and like
Mhm.
taking acting more seriously,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like I got it, I got it. Like I can do this by myself. Like it's okay. But then getting to watch other people is
Mhm.
just it's so rewarding, and it's such an educational experience, and it's helped me so much. Like um in our production of Inherit the Wind that we did about a month
Mhm.
ago, my director double casted it, and so um there was another person playing the same character as me, and we would like flip flop which nights we performed and everything. And
Interesting. Okay. I've never heard that
yeah,
before.
it
That's
was really
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
But we at first I was like, oh gosh, like I don't know how this is gonna go. Like I think I'm just gonna compare like my performance to theirs, and I was like,
Yeah.
I was just constantly thinking like, oh, does my director think like they're better for like they're better than I am at this
Yeah.
part, or like are my castmates thinking that too? And so that was my initial thoughts like going into it, but then um watching that person play the same character,
Hmm.
I was just sitting at rehearsal one night, and I just had like constantly was writing down things because
Hmm.
I learned so much from the way that they played it, and I was like, they're playing it with, more strength, and I'm playing it with more vulnerability. So where do those connections lie? Like where can I find the balance in that? And then
Hmm.
um like even like certain lines, I was like, oh, that's what that means. And so
Yeah.
it was so helpful to see that. And um yeah, I think you constantly are learning from other people, and you need other people's perspectives because like the scene from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof that I just did,
Hmm.
I had so many questions about the whole thing, and there's so many things that I don't even think about. Like I was like, okay, I'm just kind of saying this, but then my director would be like, why do you say that? And
Hmm.
where is that coming from? And I'd be like, oh, well, and then I was like, actually, I don't know. And so then it's just that collaboration of finding where everything is coming from. And my scene partner, his name was Karam, and he was so wonderful, and like he was so passionate about the scene that it made me want to work harder.
Hmm.
And it was like such a cool moment of
Yeah.
collaboration between the two of us, and I learned so much from working with him, and like um we just created something really cool. And so um I think working with others just it's so rewarding, and it's such a good experience, and you learn so much from it. And yeah, and you get a whole new perspective on the scene. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel that. Those are definitely some great insights. And yeah, I mean, definitely just hearing other people's points of views or just see them doing certain things for sure. Like that,
Mhm.
even as a director and producer, that helps me out a ton too. You can learn so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting into some questions to wrap it up that I ask all my
Mhm.
guests. If there was one actor you could act with in a movie, who would it be?
Mhm. Oh, this is so hard. I was trying to think. I was like, I'll have to say right now, I feel like maybe Steve Carell.
Okay,
I like
it's an
I was
interesting.
trying to
I
think
like him a lot.
because I was like always when someone asks me like who do you look up to as an actor, it's always like Emma Stone, Margot Robbie. Kerry Washington, Gina Rodriguez, Natalie Portman. There's a lot. The list goes on and on. But right
Yeah,
now, I feel like
for sure. Yeah.
I would love to work with Steve Carell. I think he is such a well-rounded actor. Like obviously from The Office, he's
Yep.
hilarious, and then we
Mhm.
see him in Beautiful Boy, and he's so vulnerable and authentic and emotional, and it's just he just has so much in his wheelhouse, and it's crazy. So I think I'd love to work with Steve Carell at some point, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I like him a lot. A couple of people did choose Emma Stone, so that was funny that you brought her up as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, Steve Carell's fun. I like him a lot. I like him in Anchorman and 40-Year-Old Virgin. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
those.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, he's fun. And then obviously, yeah, The Office. I'm sure that's what most people know him from.
Hmm.
And then one writer and or director you could work with. Who would it be?
Okay. This one was a tricky one. I'm not too familiar with like I only know the very like famous directors. Um,
Mm,
but
mm,
a
okay, yeah.
certain writer I would love to work with would okay, technically he is a musician, but his name's
Okay.
Dermot Kennedy. He's my favorite person ever. But
I am
his
not familiar personally.
he's not that big of an artist yet.
Okay.
Um but he is just his music is so poetic and so beautiful and just so many of his songs I just can like immediately envision this like scene that he's painting and so
Mhm.
I feel like if he were to ever do any sort of production or write any sort of thing, I would hands down be the first in line for that. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool,
Yeah.
cool. It's a unique pick for sure. And then your top five comedy movies of all time.
Okay. Um, number one has to be The Way, Way Back. It is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh no, I haven't even seen this one.
Oh no, you have to watch it. It has Steve Carell in it, and
Okay.
he does play such a mean character. So that's another
Oh,
fun thing to see.
interesting.
And then
Okay.
it
I don't think I've
has
seen that from him yet.
he oh my gosh, he's you just want to like punch the screen. He just makes you smile. But Sam Rockwell's in it and Maya Rudolph is in it. Um but that's my favorite movie of all time. I think it's wonderful. It's so funny. And then number 2 would have to be The Big Sick.
Okay.
It definitely has its moments of being very dramatic, but it's written by
McKay.
Kamal
Wait,
Nanjiani.
no. Sorry, I'm my bad, my bad.
That's okay. But
Hmm.
that movie, it's just so funny. There's so many little like bits in it, and I love it. It's wonderful.
That's
Um,
funny. I got the title mixed up with The Big Short. I know what The Big
well,
Sick
yeah,
is,
yeah,
but yeah, I did.
yeah.
That's why I said that. Yeah.
Um, and then this one might be a random one, but Surf's Up. I don't know if you've
Okay.
ever seen it.
I have not. I know what it is, but I haven't seen it.
Something about that movie is just, it's so perfect. I don't know. The soundtrack is great. I think it's hilarious, even though it is an animated movie. But
Hmm.
I don't, there's so many things that happen like on the daily that I'm like, oh, and I just think of that movie and
That's funny.
it's just too good. But then I would say, my sisters and I always would watch She's the Man on
Okay.
like snow days or something in like middle school. And so that's like definitely a family favorite in my family, but
Hmm.
I love that movie. I think it's just so goofy. And
I'm
then
familiar. That's another one I haven't seen. So this is interesting. I haven't seen any of these four. I wonder if I've seen number five.
number 5 I would have to say is Miss Congeniality with Sandra
Okay,
Bullock.
we went 5 for 5.
Oh
I know
no.
these movies. I just
Oh. But I love that movie. I think it's just so good. And then some honorable mentions I'd have to say are The Hangover and
okay. I've seen that one.
Blades of Glory.
Okay, I've seen that too.
I think those are my honorable mentions, but
Okay,
yeah.
good movie. Yeah, yeah. Did you see The Joker? I know it's not a
I have
comedy, but
I have seen The Joker. I haven't seen Joker 2 yet. I heard some very mixed opinions about it.
yeah, I mean everyone hates it, and there was even an actor who was in it who was on a podcast recently who said he hated it, and he said that
Mm.
they were like talking in between takes, like him and the other actors were talking about how bad it was going to bomb, which
Oh,
sounds insane.
no.
That I don't know that just sounds disrespectful to do that on the set,
Yeah.
um, but
I Oh gosh.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was decent. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, this isn't spoiling anything, but obviously it's not a movie that makes you feel good about yourself. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
saw the first one, you get the vibe, yeah.
Mhm.
But no, I bring that up because I'm not sure if you know, but the same director that made The Hangover made those movies.
No way.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Wow. I mean, I guess he can do it all. He has a wide range working for him there. So,
yeah, yeah. One of my favorites, Todd Phillips. Yeah, yeah, that is quite the range. But great, yeah, I appreciate you coming on. It was a very fun conversation.
thank you. Yes, this was so wonderful. I could talk about it all day. So, yeah.
Me too.